I want to bring sexy back, like bring Justin, bring JT, like I'm bringing sexy back. Yep. To cultivating our inner relationships. Hello, and welcome to the Weeder Life podcast. I'm your host, Erica Weederlight, and I am the CEO and founder of We the Light. I help humans who feel inadequate, broken, self-conscious, and shamed around their sexuality to reclaim their aliveness, their power, and to have a renewed relationship to pleasure while preparing themselves to feel hella confident to date others and themselves. AKA, I'm guiding people to live their #best lives. I have to give you a fair warning. I do unfortunately swear like a drunken sailor, so if you do have little ones by you, just be sure to pop in some earbuds. All right, friends, let's buckle up and let's rock it to this week's episode. So the content of this episode today is like mwah, 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 mwah. Total chef's kiss. Total like, ooh, yes, honey. Like it's got the juice. Like it quite frankly has the juice. And yet I was like thinking about like the overarching umbrella theme. And I got a crunch, you know, like I got a crunch, I got a little, ooh, like I was like, this isn't the cutest. And so it's funny because the whole episode that we're talking about today, really, when we boil it down, is cultivating and consciously creating our inner relationship to ourselves. And isn't it funny for me that I was like, oh my gosh, you know, like there's so many different pieces to this episode and so many different pieces to this conversation. And I was so psyched, and I'm so psyched to talk about all the different things. But it's interesting that for me, at least, and I'm curious for you, the cultivating an inner relationship like doesn't feel hot. Like I'm like, oh, that feels like a dry piece of toast, you know? So I'm like, oh, that's interesting that like I hold that belief. And I think part of that is, sure, that's my own stuff, but I also think our society, like not to blame our society, some of our society's hot, but like some of our society we're taught culturally that it's kind of egoic, it's not really necessary to go inward. And how I was introduced to cultivating a relationship with myself was more on the spiritual realm, which was hot. I fucking love that. But it didn't feel juicy. It came from a place of like, I'm gonna look inward because I've had trying times. Does that make sense? And so I'm like, oh yeah, like I want to bring sexy back, like bring Justin, bring JT, like I'm bringing sexy back. Yep. To cultivating our inner relationships, because who the fuck wants to then go inward if it feels, for so many of us, like, oh, I have to do this fucking meditation, or like, oh, I have to go inward and find this fucking deep thing about myself. You know, if it feels hard, if it feels like, oh my gosh, we're less likely to do it. So I want to bring that juice. I want to bring that like excitement back of, no, it's really fucking exciting when we can hold both. Like we can be in society and rock it out and be a good human and be a good partner and show up in relationships from a place of love, and also be like, fuck yes, I'm gonna have my inner practice that's hot, and I know how to take care of myself, and I know how to take care of my needs, but like that's from a hot place. You know what I mean? That's like, ooh, this feels juicy, versus like, oh, here we go again. Let's go inward and let's sit on the meditation pillow, and it's so crunchy crunch like a piece of kale that's been in the oven too long. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Or are you like, Erica, I don't know the fuck you're talking about. But for me, I really do want to add that pizzazz, that like, that sexy back for cultivating inner relationships. And how I got to this very specific idea of a podcast is, sure, we're going to talk about going inward today, of course, because like literally duh. But where I got this theme from was I hashtag brag, but also hashtag burnout, was on 3 podcast episodes yesterday. I'm like, how did I book all of this at the same day? But it was great. It actually was super exciting. I was like, oh yeah. I was jazzed up. I was like fucking thrilled to talk about this work. And questions that were a thread line for all 3 of the podcasts were asking about oh, you talk about like your work is about confidence and self-love and pleasure. And on all of them, I was like, fuck yeah, fuck yeah, fuck yeah. And we talked about the things, we talked about self-love, the nuances, which is hot. I should probably, when everything's released, I'll tell you about those podcast episodes. But they were like hot conversations. It was nuanced. It wasn't the blanket statement of like self-love, yeah, or like treat yourself. Like we really dissected and went into the nuances of these hot topics, which you've heard me say this 4 million times, but I am so thrilled that self-love, pleasure, confidence is becoming like hot ticket items. Like a part of me is thrilled that, these themes are Instagrammable. These themes are TikTokable. Like, da 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 da, and then like someone pointing to the screen being like self-love affirmations daily. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm great, as simple as it's be. Like, I'm grateful that like thank God we're fucking talking about it. And there can be a little bit of. I'm also like. Just laughing at how I found the first TikTok song. Hey, is it love? What was that song? Definitely was by Jason Derulo. But I'm like, well, exactly, like, the TikTok dance that we're doing. It's like, we know it. God bless. Like, again, I'm thrilled, and I am genuinely thrilled that this conversation is being more accessible to all. And how cool is it when you're like unconsciously scrolling on social media and you're like, oh yes, let me watch this person make their, fit fam salad or let me watch this person decorate their house, and I could scroll and be like, oh fuck yeah, tell me about that affirmation. Tell me that I'm the luckiest bitch alive. Like that is hot, that's accessible. And I'm thrilled. And like I said, there can be an underbelly to it. And I've talked about this many times that it's great we're starting the conversation, but we're not like really finishing it, or it's never really going to be finished, but we're not really diving into it. So it leaves a lot of us being like, it leaves a lot of us to have shame because we're like, I don't think I'm doing it right. Like, what the fuck does this entail? Like, self-love, I guess I love myself. And so in these conversations that I was having yesterday, and really all the time, it's like, okay, hot, we got the start of the conversation. Like, let's get into the fucking nuances. Let's get into the depth of this conversation. What self-love is, what it isn't. How do we hold this? What confidence is, what it isn't. What's the shadow of it? What's the stick? So maybe I'll record a little bit about that another time, because that conversation was hot, hot, hot. But Cliff Notes is, when I draw a through line with all of those, it was, and I said this, to the host, I was like, they're all a fucking relationship. Like, at the end of the day, like, take away the underbelly, or with underbelly, honestly, the confidence, the self-love, the body love, the body positivity, all of this shit is a relationship. And I think so often when we enter this world, there's an ignorance, and that's okay. But there is an ignorance of, I'm working on myself. Now, don't I? Like, there's a little bit of a spoiled, like, well, I went to a life coach. Don't I deserve the world now? Or like, we hold a cute story. And some of us really, I was talking with someone yesterday, and they're holding actually a lot of shame. Like, but I've been doing this work for a while. Shouldn't my life be perfect? And I was like, no, for me, coaching, therapy, this work is, yes. Do we talk about getting your fucking desires? Fuck yeah. Like, am I going to be your biggest cheerleader and your biggest support and your most loving dom that's like, hey bitch, did you do that action step? Because I know you want that thing. Yes. Like, I will lovingly, and in a way that feels good to you, hold you to get the thing. But also, this work is so transformative. Sure, sometimes you get the things, which is hot, hot, hot. But really why this work is so powerful is you then have the tools and technology to hold everything. So you can hold when you get the fucking thing off of your vision board and you're like, fuck yes, like, I got the white Mercedes, Or when life is fucking burning around you and you're like, wow, I'm in the pits of hell right now. Like, okay, cool. I know how to lovingly hold, support, witness myself. So I do see that there is that like delusion around this work is like, well, I invested in myself. I did the hashtag self-love. Why am I not getting the things? It feels because, and that's okay, but you know the deal. We live in a transactional society. So there's a part of our brain, no problem, but there is a part of our brain sometimes that can say, well, I did A plus B, so it should equal C. Or like, I did these things, so I should get. And I'm like, sure. And usually coaching, at least the coaching that I do, or the work that I do is yes, there's a lot of science behind it. There's a lot of logistics behind it that like boom, 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 that we get you here. And also a big part of the conversation is super fucking abstract. I remember I was working with someone that's also a friend and he's like, I love this. And it's also so interesting. He's like, I love the parts that are boom, boom, boom. He's like, that satisfies, my linear brain. And I feel like, oh, I feel really safe. And he's like, I love that. He's like, but this has been a great practice in me in trusting the like abstract, the elusive, like it's really helped me lean into my quote unquote spirituality and quote unquote my relationship to energy because I feel myself being so different. I see myself showing up so differently. And maybe it didn't follow a boop boop formula or things, how do I say? It's not like my life is completely different on paper. So I like to hold both. Like in my coaching and my work, I like to hold both that, okay, hey, we're going to hit these steps, boom, 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 to make it happen. But a lot of the work is internal. A lot of the work is in that abstract field. And that's a fucking relationship. Like that's a relationship. So I was saying yesterday, a lot of the hosts were asking, like, hey, how do I be more confident? Or like, hey, how do I have self-love? And I'm like, fuck yes, fuck yes, fuck yes. Like, here's some tools to start the journey. And this is going to be an ever-changing relationship. And we're not taught that. We're taught, like, look at the Instagram video. Okay, and I have tons of these exercises that fucking work. But, like, we need to have a relationship with them. We need to do them consistently. I say this all the time with pleasure. I ignorantly, when I first started this work, I was like, yes. Like, relentlessly, pushing my pleasure edge. And I was like, yes. And I was like, I think I'm done for this lifetime. Like, I got it. And it was like, like, what? You're so cute. Like, this is a muscle, my darling. Like, you're going to need it. I mean, you don't need to, but like, you desire this. So it's a muscle to be worked. And so I was like, I had a little bit of a temper tantrum. I was like, but I've worked really hard on this. Like, I've worked so hard on moving shit around pleasure. Like, I should just be in fucking pleasure all the time, and I realized like, yes, son of a bitch. Like, this is a goddamn relationship. And this is going to be something that's ever changing. And I've talked about this again so much with my relationship to pleasure, like, especially within the seasons and the cycles of my life. Like, I've had to calibrate myself to this new relationship over and over and over and over again. And I'm going to probably for the rest of my life. And I think that's a little bit of the harm with the hashtag self-love, hashtag self-care, is we think it's just the sheet masks and bubble baths, or it's, I just fully, like, I'm just hot, like, like we're just going surface. And I want to jump into two examples that I think will help illuminate this. So the body love, the host yesterday, one of them, was really challenging me on like body love. We really fucking dissected that topic. Like, we really picked it apart. We really went into it. Like, what actually does that mean? And I have been saying this actually a lot this week in my groups, on podcasts. I've been talking about this a lot in regards to relationships. So I remember probably, I don't know time, maybe 7 years ago. I don't know. I was at a friend's event, a self-help event. It was fucking hot. It was amazing. And there was a speaker there, and she was talking about essentially relationship to body. And she was saying in her lifetime, and we're going to get hashtag vulnerable, but like in her lifetime, she has probably, you can't hold me to the exact number, but something like her body has fluctuated like 1,500 pounds. Like it was between 1,000 and 2, but it was probably 1,500 pounds. And jaws dropped. Everyone was like, what? Like, what? And then here comes vulnerable. I was like, that's fucking wild. And then I was like, wait, same though. Like, same actually. Personally, and this is a tale for another day, but like if you know a little bit about me, like I have had a consistent push-pull, ping-pong relationship. And I've been on every side of the spectrum with, I've been a super small size most of my life on the bigger side, like on the bigger side of that spectrum, a little heavier than that. So like I've danced every size. And I'm always like shocked when people are like, oh, I've been this size for years. I'm like, like I literally could be a department store. Like I have almost every size in my closet. And that for me has been, and that's a very extreme example. A lot of people don't hold like that extreme. That's an extreme thing for me. And that's an extreme lesson in my lifetime that I'm like finally getting cool with talking about, that I'm finally getting cool teaching. I think for a long time I was like, oh my God, this is still triggering for me. This is still up. I'm talking about it more with I'm doing a lot, especially with my one-on-one and my groups. I'm more vulnerable to talk about it, but now I'm coming out to the public more and being like, hey, this is my this was my transparent truth. This is my like deep thing, and it's been one of my deepest healings, and it's been so fucking transformative to me. So cliff notes, and I'll give you another example on body. So this may be TMI, but I was having like extreme migraines, all this shit. And my neurologist was like, you need to get off birth control literally fucking now. Like you're in the dangers. Like it's affecting like brain stuff. Like you need to get it off it now. And I was like, okay, no problem. Like literally stopped that day. And I'm so cute. I was like, nothing's going to happen. And like, I've had so many changes. One that is just up for me right now this is gross. Not that I would, but like my hair on birth control. Not that I would, but we were in a pandemic, but not that I would. I did not have to wash my hair for like 3 weeks, and it would not get a stitch greasy. Like that's rude. Like that's fucking insane. Like, and I was like, clean and clear and under control. You know what I mean? Like what? Now I fuck you not. I get out of the shower and I'm like, yes, like combing my hair. And then I'm like, oh, it's greasy. What? So like I have seen crazy hormonal changes, rightfully so, but after coming off birth control. And so why I'm bringing up these two examples with the weight and the birth control is our bodies are whether it be the birth control, whether it be I gained 5 pounds, I lost 5 pounds. For me, it's always a lot more than that. And that's okay. I'm holding myself in that. But whatever example it is, I have a lot of fantastic clients that I've seen on cancer journeys. And actually was talking about this recently with some folks last week. And it's like, okay, like, how do I love myself now? Like what this looks like, like this is, I feel, I see people with autoimmune. Like I feel like my body's fucking betraying me. How the fuck do I love that? And so there's a lot of nuanced conversations. And the thing is, our body is ever shifting, growing, moving. And how do we find the rightness in that? I mean, I know for me, when I was I believe me, I saw my shit because that's when I was in my dark night of the soul. But when I was my littlest, and I was hitting all the things I should, like all the things on paper, that was easy to love. You know what I mean? Like that was like, nuanced, but I could get behind that because I was like, oh, but this is a relationship. So what I'm getting at is, how can we consistently find the beauty, the rightness, the fucking divine, the rock on, the oh my gosh, gorgeous in the ever-changing relationship that's going to be our body? Because if we're holding, which so many of us do, this, no, it needs to be like this, like it yikes-a-rama. Like it was this 20 years ago. Well, you just had 5 children and whatever. And again, this conversation is nuanced about body love, and that's not necessarily why we're here today. But what I'm talking about is that this is going to be an ever evolving relationship with our confidence, with our body, with our spirituality, with our sexual empowerment. Body is always going to be our body, God willing, that we're here, God willing. It's honestly a fucking miracle, that our body is going to be like, how beautiful is that? That if we are privileged, if we're lucky enough to be here, it's always going to be ever changing. We're not really taught that reframe. So that is something that's going to be ever changing. And my ask to you is, how can you get behind those changes? Right? Like when we get out of the shit, when we get out of our own way and we see, oh my gosh, what a privilege it is that I am going to be ever changing, and that I have the responsibility to keep finding the rightness, finding the beauty, finding the celebration in those changes. That's our responsibility, and that's the fucking work. And so if you're up for it, 2 things, 2 baby homeworks or home plays, however you want to play it, is I would love for us to first and foremost reframe to the best fucking ability that we have, that instead of my body is, I need to get to this goal, to this destination. And again, nuance here, right? Like I talked about this yesterday on the other podcast. Like sometimes we are on a health journey, and we do have a desire to get somewhere else to feel better. So nuance. But what I'm saying is, instead of looking at the wrongness of our body and that we need to be here, it's, can we cultivate the energy of a relationship? And can we meet our body? Can we have conversations with our body? Can we be in relationship with our body? That's part 1. Part 2 is, and I'm doing this in one of my groups right now, an ode to your body. And I'm always available if you want witnessing, if you want holding, but even if you just want to do it yourself, is every few days I pick a different body part. In my group that I'm holding, we take the picture and we send a love letter to this part of us. And so often it's like, oh, that sounds really fucking hard. But how I encourage everyone is, okay, let's see this body part as if a child like awe, like has never seen a body before, or like someone has just gained vision and is like, oh my God, look at the gorgeous color and the texture and the folds, like almost looking at your body as if it's a piece of art and seeing the rightness, the beauty, finding, look at how the freckles connect, or, that scar is so rich, how it's a different color. And I love that. Like, I want us to be #dramatic. I'm sure you're not surprised that I'm suggesting that for you. 'Cause I love it, but really like, getting behind as if it is a fucking masterpiece and finding the absolute glory and beauty in it. And like I said before, it's a nuanced conversation. We talked yesterday on that specific podcast with Body Love, like how, especially when people go on health journeys, so often health journeys are, they are, at least for me, a lot of them have been fueled by hate. And fuck, you were wrong and you got yourself here and you need to get here. There's a lot of crunch and negativity and just like vile thoughts and rudeness to myself. And so for me, over the years, I've had to really shift that, especially when I am prioritizing my health, and I said this yesterday, how in one foot in the door am I doing this, right? Like finding the gorgeousness, finding the beauty, finding the, exquisite goddess. Like, how am I fully getting fucking behind it? And on the other hand, if I am on a health journey, like, okay, with discernment and with holding, like, okay, and it would feel better, it would feel best if we moved our body. It would feel best if we ate foods that made us feel good. And in the past, I didn't know how to do that. In the past, it was just like, you're a piece of shit, and it was filtered through that critical negative lens. And so I've had to relearn again, especially when I am prioritizing health and wellness, to do it in a very loving, different way. But that's a fucking relationship. Going back to relationship, this conversation's so nuanced. So if you want to dive deeper, I'm down to talk about it. Because there's pieces to this. But today what I wanted to highlight was, like I said, the relationship to this, and that our relationship is going to be ever changing. Like I said, at one time, my relationship to health and wellness was so distorted. And now how I'm trying to approach it is a different angle. But all these things come back to going inward, which is what this podcast is about, is having that relationship within ourselves. And I want to do one more baby example, one more homework, one more assignment, if you will. But I'll do a baby little sachet back to this work. I always say, everyone's like, oh, who's your ideal client? And I'm like, whoever feels called. We all need this work in a capacity. You know what I mean? We all need to be held, celebrated, cheered on, looked at our deepest shit. It's needed for everyone. And if you are feeling the pull to be like, okay, like love the podcast, ... what's more? I always suggest people, I have other free resources like my blog, and my audiobook, not a bad idea, my ebook. But to really get the one-on-one action with me, I do have that free call, which you can get on the website, to just see if we are a match to work together. And if we're not, I'm happy, if you want me to send you in another direction, I'm happy to do that. But like I said, I really feel, as you can tell, I'm obsessed with this work, and I feel like it's needed for all. So if something inside of you is pulsing, like, oh, should I do it? Should I do it? Just schedule the fucking call. Schedule the call, and we'll have a great time. It's a free complimentary 60-minute chat. And we go into what's coming up for you right now. Like, what do you want to work on? What do you want to be? What do you want to move through? What are some desires? Like we talked about before, like how can we fucking celebrate where you're at and learn tools and technology to hold you? And how can we also step towards the dreams, desires that you're so wanting to crave? So if that's something that's like pulsing inside of you, fucking take me up on it. And you can get that info at my website, wethelight.org. Or if you're like, hey, could I just shoot you an email and we schedule? Sure, that's an option too. And you can email the info@wethelight.org and just set up a chat. Let's fucking do this. Let's do this. If you're here and there's something inside of you that's, like so often we all have we listen to podcasts and we're like, all right, bye, thank you, that was nice. But if there's something that keeps bringing you back, if there's something that's gotten you this long in this conversation that you're like, I'm a little enticed, fucking take me up on it. You know what I mean? Like, take me up on it. Why not? And if it's not a jam for you, it's not a jam for you. Tried. Great. Next. Or if it is a jam for you, fuck yes, your life's about to change and be fucking awesome. And you have this wacky lady in your life. So I always say, why the fuck not? It's free. It's literally no strings attached. To take it. Okay, great. So going back to the other tool and the other relationship that's constantly being cultivated, and this is a big one for me currently, is our relationship to our sexuality. And that fucking shit ebbs and goddamn flows, especially when our body changes. I mean, we could talk about before, when people are dealing with illness, bodies changing, our desires change, our relationship, and we've talked about this plenty of times, but our relationship to our sexuality is consistently changing. And because it's not a normal conversation, we take it so harsh and we make ourselves so wrong because we think, oh, fuck, am I broken? I hear so often, I used to be so wild or sexually active and now nothing. Like there's this wrongness in that story. And So I'm here to tell you and to remind you that it's a relationship. It's an ongoing relationship. We've talked about this before with seasons, that like we are cyclical, and sexually we go through different seasons. Some you're like pot of barang and you're like, fuck yes. Some you're in the winter, some you're in the fall, some you're in the spring. But that's a relationship that's always going to be cultivated. It's kind of ignorant that sometimes we just are like, that's nice, that's a category in my in a box, and that's over there, and I check it and I do the things, and it's like, oh my gosh, like it is a wonderful relationship that's asking us and flirting with us in the corner. And I recently, actually, I guess yesterday too, was being asked like, why is this a big part of your work? And I said, for me, I did every fucking self-help thing in the book. Like truly relentless. I'm like, I must go to this retreat 5 million times. So like I've done them all. They've helped me tremendously. They've changed who I am. They've given me great tech tools and technology. I'm fucking thrilled. I'm fucking blessed. Hallelujah. And nothing has been more sobering, in my face, had me look at my shit, move through my shit, been a deeper spiritual journey than working with the sexuality, because it brought up all my fucking shit. And it also brings me the deepest alignment. It talk about, so often when we talk about this world of like, feel good, you have to feel good to manifest good things, like bleh. Like me doing this work has confronted my deepest fucking demons. And it's also been an access point to, oh, I actually know how to feel good in my body. I've combed through the trauma. I've sat with myself in the fucking swampiest of swamps. I've rewired myself that it's safe to hold good feelings in my body. So I now know how to hold pleasure, safety, joy in my body. So for me, it was one of the most potent, transformative fucking places I could go, especially since there's so much shame around it. There's so much taboo around it. I was like, oh, this is gonna be juicy and triggering. So we've suggested this before. I've suggested this before, but again, this is a relationship. So often, like I said, it's something we think, oh, I'm just gonna check this off the box, or this is something I do, and okay, that's nice. Put it in a box. I did it. That's cool. Put it in a corner. And this is actually a relationship. I remember when I first started this work, similar, one of my teachers was saying, like, so often, so many of us have a relationship to comparing it to, okay, like pleasure for so many of us is, she connected it to, how'd she say it? She said, it's like learning French, right? Or like when we first start doing it, doing the dance, it's like learning French. She's like, but to actually have a relationship and to push your edge and be held in this and to kind of go head to head with those demons, to really say, hey, get curious about what you want, to feel through your body. She's like, that is not only fucking learning French, but that's flying to Paris. That's going to the countryside. That's living amongst the people and getting the culture and living it. So, and I was like, oh, fuck yeah. Like there's one thing, and we're so taught, oh shit, this could be actually be an episode, but we're taught, right, that, obviously we're taught a lot of things, but that it's dirty, it's wrong. But the way that we do glamorize it, it's very surface. Like, yeah, I'm going to wear that lingerie, which like loves it. Like that's hot. Just placed a huge order myself. But like we have a very surface relationship to it of, it's very performative. It's very on the surface. And what this work can do, if you so choose to do that work when we work together, or when you do take that plunge, is it can be fully immersive experience instead of surface performative or I'm okay, that was fine. That checked the box. It's like, cool. Like, love that for you, that it's checking the box. But like, you have an opportunity not to just listen to the free French on Spotify or watch TikTok videos of how to learn French. Bitch, I'm sending you first class to France and you're eating the most fucking delicious baguettes and macaroons. Like you're like, oh my gosh, like you're literally smelling lavender in lavender fields, So it's like there is, an exquisite fucking opportunity. There's an exquisite relationship that's waiting for us. And it's my privilege to hold people to make it safe to cross that threshold if they want to. Some people don't, and that's cool too. But there's an opportunity there. And so another baby exercise I'll suggest is just thinking about, where you're at, which is all good. Like, okay, where am I on the journey right now? Am I in France, or put it whatever turns you on, Italy? Like, am I fully immersed with this relationship, or am I kind of on the sidelines? And if I'm on the sidelines, that's fucking cool too. There's reasons sometimes we're on the sidelines, right? There's trauma, there's safety, there's I'm too fucking busy. Like there's reasons sometimes we're on the sidelines. But I just want us to get curious of where we're at. Are we fully fucking immersed, where we're pushing edges, we're learning about ourselves, we're getting curious, about what makes us feel alive, what makes us feel embarrassed, where our shame lives in our body? Like, are we in that? Do we want to be in that? And I'm curious, the question here, the home play is, where do we want to go with it? And maybe you're like, you know what, Erica, right now, I just want to do a half step closer to that. Fuck yeah, that's awesome. Or you know what, Erica, maybe I want to unlock some of this tension and this trauma. Fuck yeah. Or Erica, send me on the plane. I want to fucking get in there. I want to feel the juice. I want to feel the aliveness. I want to use this relationship to sexuality as a portal to my spirituality. Fuck yeah. Down for that. So I just want us to take a pulse on where we want to be, because again, so much of the shame is the shoulding. And like, I should be here. I should be performative. I should be kicking my face in my Fenty lingerie. Like there's so many shoulds. And maybe that's not your fucking truth right now. So I'm curious what your truth is. Where are you at? Cool. How can we support that and say rock on? And where are you wanting to get to? What's the desire? Where do you want to land? And like I said, this is ever evolving. So it's not like, okay, I'm going to do this exercise and then I'm going to land here and then I'm done. It's a relationship. So, okay, my next step that would feel really nourishing is here. And like a relationship, I'm going to see where it goes, So I want us to just check in. Like I said, where are we now? Where do you want to go with this relationship for now? And like I said, we're going to consistently be checking in because it's a relationship. And I think we've talked about this before recently, actually, but I want to pay my respects to this convo as we kind of close out here in the different archetypes and what we need. And like I said, with that inner relationship. So I saw 2 clients yesterday and we did similar-ish exercises, but one client is really needing, for that self-love, she's really needing her inner goddess. And she was like, oh shit, like I did not expect that. But she's needing that like softer, like, hey baby, like that, like self-soothing, like she's like, oh fuck, like I need someone to literally, like, I need to sit on someone's lap and they need to pet my hair. Like she needs that level of self-love, like right now, of like whispering sweet nothings, like you're beautiful, you're amazing. Like that's what she needs. And then it's funny, later in the day, my first client needed that. And my last client of the day in the evening she was like, we kind of fell through different archetypes. And she was like, no, that feels fucking horrible right now. Like the last thing is I need the goddess. I'm like, hot, nope, out of here. She needs right now the fucking loving dom. And the loving dom is the whoop, but like from a place of empowerment. Like, bitch, I love you, but get at it. Like, cut the shit. Like a loving dom that loves the shit out of you, is so supportive of you, and is very discerning and sober around like, baby, I see you. I'm going to let you cry because you need that cry. Okay, but then you're going to get your ass up and you're going to fight. You're going to say those affirmations. You're going to look at how fucking beautiful. You're going to do the goddamn tools. So what I'm saying is, so she's like, I need that. She's like, I don't have the capacity for like a soft goddess right now. I'm like, hot, you're out. She's like, I need someone to lovingly whip me into shape and be like, ba-boom, honey bear, let's go. And so our relationships right? Because we say like inner self, and it's like, fuck yeah, fuck yeah, fuck yeah. And what I want to bring to the table is the different relationships within ourselves and cultivating that. And sometimes with our inner self, we need that really soft, inner parent, nourishing vibe. And sometimes we need the tough love, like, my darling, you better work, bitch. So we need different things. And that's part of the relationship within our inner self of getting good and having discernment of which archetype wants to come through and having a relationship to that piece of us. And we've talked about archetypes before, but to really go deep into those archetypes, I have a client that's fucking phenomenal at different archetypes. And they are so led by these different versions of themselves, and they help them be inspired. They help them connect to their intuition. So I just encourage that as well in the relationship within our inner. Like, who do you need right now? Like, is it the soft parent? And actually, fuck it, let's just go right there. Like, I'm curious right here, right now, as you're listening to this recording, who do you need right now? It's funny, I'll give you an example. My brain, and I said this yesterday too, like, my brain really wants the dom. Like, that my brain is like, yes, like the part of me that's like loves to be like, like hustle culture wants the dom, because I'm like, fuck yeah, get everything done. Like, I'm just like, yeah, like my brain is like, that'd be so hot. But when I tap into my body, it's like, oh, we literally need to be in a shell, laying on a pearl, floating in the ocean. And I'm like, fuck. But I'm like, fuck, okay, you're right. Like, that is what I need. So I have cultivated, I've asked myself, and I'm getting good at being like, okay, this is the version that needs to support me right now, and having that relationship with that and being okay and finding safety and solitude in their presence. So I'm curious, I'm going to turn it back to you. What archetype, and if you're like, fuck, I don't really jam with archetypes, what flavor are you needing right now? Are you needing the like, oh shit, Erica, yeah, I've been a little dodgy, so I need a little tough love. Like, are you needing the tough love? Are you like, oh my God, I'm so burnt out, I need fucking like exquisite self-care? Are you needing like which vibe, which archetype? What are you needing to hold yourself, right? Because we're consistently needing to be held and to be met. So I'm curious, what would feel most anchored right now? Like I said, for me, my brain is like, yes, Dom, me. And my body's like, no. Like, like my client yesterday, like, I need someone to literally like kiss my forehead vibes. Like, I need like, yes, Erica, you're an angel. Like, I need obnoxious amount of, because I'm burnt out right now, I need obnoxious amount of self-soothing and self-regulation to kind of come back to neutral, and then we could do the dance. You may need something else. So I'm curious for you right here, right now, what's the vibe? What's the holding that you need to feel deeply seen, held, nourished? So we were kind of all over the place, but really, as always, no shock there. But the general theme here is that idea of cultivating and consciously creating that inner relationship with ourselves. And we talked about before, ooh, it's not so sexy, but I want to give permission to you to make it the fucking sexiest thing ever, to make it the most exciting thing ever, that I have the power, the privilege to go inward, to learn about myself, to grow, to show up as the best version of myself, for myself, my family, for my community. Like, that is a fucking privilege. And that's, for me, at least, this is one of my values. Like, for me, that's a huge reason why we're here. You know what I mean? Like, for me, I'm not really interested in, even though I sometimes get lost in it, I'm not really interested in living a life that's always ripped outside of myself. Like, I like going inward. So I learn, like, how you doing? What do you need? How can you support yourself so you can support others? It's a great gift. It's a great gift to know how to hold yourself, to know where your intuition lies, to know what you're needing, to know what feels right for you. It's a fucking amazing gift that is so hot. You know, I talked about, like I said, the crunch before, but like it's actually the hottest fucking thing. It's the hottest thing in the world because instead of us feeling like we need to rely on others and external situations, right? Like I need to rely on that relationship to have pleasure, or I need to rely on that food to give me a rush, or that alcohol to give me that rush, or that thing, or that external validation to make me feel good. Sure, those things could still like are hot. There's a place for that, of course, and they're hot and, you know, they have a place. But when we know how to really have a relationship and go inward, we're like, I'm good. I know how to hold myself. I know how to fucking validate myself. I know how to create safety and pleasure in my body so I don't need to not even rely on others, but like relentlessly take from others. So this is the sexiest fucking thing you could do. So turning that invitation to you, and how do you want to play moving forward your inner relationship? How do you want to have the most gorgeous, delicious, like, fuck yeah. I always say this with my clients, like, how cool is it? Like, I'm obsessed with tarot readers and angel card readers. I fucking love that shit. But how cool is it, in addition to that, if that's your jam, you yourself are an oracle. If you know how to go inward and listen to your intuition, that's pretty fucking cool. So there is such a gift. We are truly, and my teacher always says this, an untapped natural resource. And this is a gift. So I'm curious, our final thoughts as we pot a beret out of here and we hit our face with our leg and we kickball change and we tap, tap, tap. I'm curious how you want to cultivate this relationship with yourself. And again, it's a relationship, so it's going to be ever changing. Sometimes it's going to look like meditation every day. Sometimes it's going to be like, no, no, no. Sometimes we forget and we ignore. But I'm curious from here, what's the next right step that supports you? What's the next right, okay, this is the next move in our relationship. I'm curious, maybe you're like, oh fuck, I've done so little work with this part. No problem. Maybe it's just saying hi to your inner self every day. So I'm curious from here, if this is the jumping point, what's the next chapter in your relationship? I don't need the end of the book. I'm curious about the next chapter with your relationship, with your inner self. How are you going to jam? How are you going to dance? How are you going to create that beautiful, beautiful bond that is one of our greatest gifts? I love you the most in the land. And I can't wait to hear how this new evolving relationship goes. Tell me all the juicy deets. I love you. Bye. Thank you, seriously thank you so much for joining me on today's episode and on this podcast journey. And if you loved what we talked about today and you know another human who could definitely benefit from what was discussed, I would so appreciate if you would go ahead and share this podcast with them. Don't forget, hit subscribe or follow so you never ever miss an episode. And the great news is you can always follow me, my work, my blog, my podcast on my website at www.wethelight.org. And hey, remember, life is so much brighter when we shine. I'll see you next time.